evacuation orders are in effect in Lebanon's capital as Israel's military vows to keep hitting Hezbollah targets. Lebanese authorities report dozens of people were killed on Thursday, more than 1,400 in the past few weeks. And we're following a brand new development. Lebanon says an Israeli strike on a key border crossing with Syria has cut off access to the international road. Tens of thousands of people fleeing the fighting in Lebanon have used the crossing over the past few weeks. That video you're seeing there is from Beirut. A source tells CNN the IDF targeted Hashem Safiaddin with a strike on the Lebanese capital. He's seen as a possible successor to Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, who was killed in an airstrike last week. Now, his fate is unclear. Israel says it struck Hezbollah's intelligence headquarters in Beirut and killed several Hezbollah commanders in southern Lebanon. The IDF says its goal is to eliminate Hezbollah's threat to the residents of northern Israel.
We will not allow Hezbollah to settle itself in these places in the future. The severe blows against Hezbollah in all areas in Beirut, in the Bekaa Valley, in South Lebanon will continue.
Tens of thousands of people have fled their homes in Lebanon. The UN says about 160,000 have crossed into Syria. Humanitarian agencies say shelters are full and overflowing, and health workers say they're overwhelmed. CNN's Ivan Watson is standing by with more on the growing refugee crisis. But first, Paula Hancock with the latest on Israel's military campaign. And Paula, on the targeting of Nasrallah's possible successor, what are we learning?
Yes, so Kim, this was an Israeli airstrike which targeted Nasrallah's cousin. He was also considered to be a potential key successor to Nasrallah. Hashem Safiaddin, he was the head of the executive council within Hezbollah as well. So a very key figure that many had assumed could well take over the reins of Hezbollah. Now we know at this point that there was a significant airstrike against him. The Israelis saying that they were targeting him. We do not know at this point, though, whether or not he was killed in that strike itself. Hezbollah always does admit and acknowledge when its fighters and its members are killed, so we'll wait to hear about that. We do know that 37 Lebanese were killed in the past 24 hours and some 151 were injured. There were more airstrikes overnight within the southern suburbs. There were some evacuation orders given by the Israeli military saying that they were going to target particular buildings and that people should move about 500 meters away from those buildings. But many of those evacuation orders came during the night when potentially many people were sleeping. Now, we've heard from the Israeli military that this will continue. You heard from the IDF chief there saying that they have to destroy Hezbollah's capabilities along the border to make sure that tens of thousands of Israelis can move back to their homes in northern Israel. Of course, this has moved far beyond the border. This is in Beirut, the capital, as well. They are still claiming it is a localized and a limited operation, but we do know that at least one other battalion has moved from the south to the northern border, and that could potentially be about 10,000 more soldiers. So the skepticism of Israel saying it was limited now appears to be realized. Kim?
All right, and Ivan, obviously Israel's attacks are having a devastating effect on the civilians there. What more can you tell us?
Right. Well, Kim, the Lebanese Red Cross has just put out an urgent appeal for blood donations. This is as the number of casualties continues to grow. The World Health Organization says that, for example, in the last 24 hours alone, some 28 healthcare workers have been killed. They say that in Beirut, 3 hospitals have been forced to fully evacuate staff and patients, and 2 others were partially evacuated. And meanwhile, in the south of Lebanon, at least 37 health facilities have been closed. Take a listen to a nurse at a hospital in Beirut, what he has to say about the kind of injuries he's seeing coming into that hospital doors.
The cases coming to the hospital are sometimes beyond what we can handle. They are so terrifying and horrifying. Some with the hand blown off, others with the leg gone. some with their heads blown off. There are stories that are so heartbreaking that even a stone would cry.
Now, we also need to acknowledge that there are more than 1 million people in Lebanon who've been displaced by the Israeli onslaught, starting from the southern areas when the Israeli bombardment first began, and now people fleeing from places like the densely populated southern suburbs of Beirut as well. Now, we've just heard from a Lebanese government minister that the main road leading up to the main land border crossing between Lebanon and Syria has been hit, and that road has been cut off. We don't know how long that is going to last for. Western governments are trying to evacuate their citizens. They're trying to arrange additional flights for ordinary Lebanese who don't have the means or the visas to travel to other countries or can't squeeze themselves onto one of these sold-out flights. The Syrian border is the only real land border that people can escape through. More than 160,000 people have crossed through there in just the last about 2 weeks, and now that appears to be closed. And, you know, in full transparency, Kim, my own in-laws, who are all displaced from their homes by the Israeli bombardment, we were discussing the possibility that they might try to escape the deadly Israeli bombardment, aerial bombardment, to try to go through Syria to Jordan. That door appears to have closed, and people are being stuck while fleeing their homes inside Lebanon. A big difference between what has happened in Lebanon and in Gaza with the Israeli assault there for nearly a year that has killed more than 40,000 Palestinians is Gaza is so much smaller. Lebanon is a much larger country, but civilian families are frightened and looking for places to hide from these deadly aerial bombardments.
Palestinians, Fred Pleitgen is following that live from Berlin. It's interesting, isn't it, Fred, seeing the response there, but also anticipating what he might say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it certainly is no coincidence, Max, that the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is leading those Friday prayers today. The last time that he actually did that was in 2020, when a U.S. airstrike, of course, killed the then commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Quds Force, Qasem Soleimani, who, of course, was very important to Iran's military apparatus. And so now, as far as those memorial services for Hassan Nasrallah, as part of these Friday prayers is concerned, the Supreme Leader, once again today, will be on the scene to speak at these Friday prayers. And we can already see, we have some of the shots there, just how large the crowds are that have turned out so far. I've been at that facility many times for Friday prayers. I have not ever seen a crowd of that size. In fact, I think the last time that there was a crowd of that size was probably the funeral for Qasem Soleimani. And one of the things that we have to keep in mind, Max, is that the bond between Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and Hassan Nasrallah was a lot stronger than I think many people realize. One of the things that we have to keep in mind is that between Qasem Soleimani, the slain general, Hassan Nasrallah, and Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, there was a major bond that was formed during the time of the Israeli incursion into Lebanon in 2006. In fact, the three wrote a book together later with a massive part of that book dealing with that 2006 incursion. So certainly there was a very special place for Hassan Nasrallah with the Supreme Leader. Certainly there was a lot of support, of course, also from Iran for Hezbollah. And the Iranians are saying that that continues. And of course, we did have that major strike on Israeli territory by the Iranians happening not after the Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was killed in Tehran, but after Hassan Nasrallah was then also killed in Beirut. And I think the Iranians are showing just how big a thing the killing of Hassan Nasrallah was for them. And of course, the Iranians also trying to display the power of their missile forces that they have. And one of the interesting caveats in all of this is that the same department of the Revolutionary Guard Corps that's responsible for Iran's missile force is also responsible for Iran's air defense systems, which of course right now are on high alert as the Iranians anticipate some sort of Israeli response that could happen. Of course, there are people who've been talking about possibly the nuclear facilities of Iran being under threat, but then also oil and gas installations as well. In any case, I would say right now that Iran's surface-to-air missile systems certainly on high alert.